What I have here is just a really strong neodymium magnet, and a while ago I decided to see what would happen if I blasted it with a blowtorch. It honestly didn't look like it did very much, but what was interesting was that once it had cooled down, it was no longer a magnet, and it was just a heavy piece of junk. This was all just an excuse, though, to test out this really expensive and kind of scary machine that I ordered from China. In theory, it was supposed to be able to revive the magnet, and I just had to wait for it to charge up to 2000 volts. Then after that, I just put this cloth thing over this other thing, shoved my little cube into the hole, and when I was ready, I clicked the button. After that, I pulled it out, and inside, it still looked exactly the same, but this time, when I tested it, there was definitely a big difference. Oh my god. In fact, it was somehow even stronger than when I started, and I had apparently accidentally upgraded it. This is just a regular light bulb, but I'm only interested in its insides. This is because I've been curious to see what happens if I plug it in without the bulb. It actually lasted a lot longer than I expected, but it basically just burned. There's one other thing that I've been really wanting to try though, and for that, I had to sacrifice another bulb. Then I got some liquid nitrogen, and I carefully lowered it in. Now, if I turn it on, it doesn't just immediately burn. This is because the liquid nitrogen is surrounding the filament with nitrogen gas and protecting it from air and oxygen. It's actually kind of acting like the bulb, which is often just filled with nitrogen gas, and I think this is pretty cool. What I have here is a bunch of sulfur, and there's something I've been really wanting to try with it. Before I do that, though, I first have to blast it with a blowtorch. This causes it to almost immediately start melting, and it's kind of hard to see, but it also lights on fire. If I then keep shooting it, it eventually completely melts, and the flame becomes much more obvious. It still isn't very bright, though, and what I've been really wanting to do is to try lowering it into pure oxygen. In theory, this should make it burn a lot better, and it definitely seems to be working. In fact, unlike before, it might even be too bright, and it's probably not a good idea to look directly at it. But anyway, the only unfortunate part is that it doesn't last for very long, and within about 20 seconds, all of the sulfur had been completely vaporized. What I have here is a bunch of dry ice, and I'm just going to drop it into a beaker and wait a bit. Now, if I light a match and try to put it in, it almost instantly goes out. This is because as the dry ice sublimated, it pushed out all the air and filled the beaker with CO2 gas. What I've been really wanting to try, though, is basically the same thing, except with magnesium metal. To do this, I first have to light it, and it's so bright that it kind of burns my eyes. But anyway, I can now try lowering it in, and unlike the match, it doesn't immediately go out. In fact, it's apparently burning even better, and it doesn't seem to care that there isn't any oxygen. This is because it's so reactive that it can directly react with the CO2 and rip the oxygen off of it. It's even able to do this with things like water and sand, and I think that's kind of terrifying.